Hello, and welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast. I'm your host, Anita, with the beautiful Melanie Marisol, talking to you today all about the new moon in Virgo coming up.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No problem. So, Melanie, what is the tea about this new moon in Virgo?
Right, so I'll just go over quickly an overview and then we will get to each individual sun sign. So we'll start off with the fact that we're in Virgo season. Uh, so Virgo in business astrology is considered the workaholic consultant. It's also associated as a feminine sign. She represents the harvest, as shown by my background here. And so as we're leaving that late summer and going into early fall, this is a time to really harvest everything that we've been working on this year, all the seeds we've been planting. Virgo is about health and organization and service. So also efficiency. So what have you been working on? Is it working out? Is this the time to pivot in your business, or maybe you should give up that project because it's not yielding any results? Again, ultimately, Virgo is also about discernment. So it's up to you. You have to make the final call. But what is the fruits of our labor actually coming to fruition? And if not, it's time to review. So, with all that, we have this new moon in a season that is all about reflection and harvesting all our work. So, from a business perspective, Virgo season occurs at the end of the third quarter of the business year. So this is an excellent time to review what you and your business has accomplished throughout the year. Also, this reevaluation lays the foundation based on data, so that you can call in the most robust quarter four, while also laying the firm foundation to play out your 2024 as well. So good time for planning the next year, paying attention to what's going on, and really paying attention to patterns that you've recognized in your business this year. For those of you who are watching, my name is Melanie Marisol, and I am a business astrologer for small business owners to medium enterprise CEOs. I help them understand the spiritual meaning behind scaling to multi-million or billion-dollar business. And I do that utilizing astrology. So anybody who has been watching our videos thus far, if you like what you're watching, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because we put out horoscopes, both new moon and full moon, twice a month. So with that, the overall energy is one of forcing us to slow down. So we do have currently 6 planets in retrograde. So I think people freak out with retrograde. They assume it's negative. But from an astronomical perspective, retrogrades are referring to the fact that the planets appear to be moving backwards from our vantage point here on Earth. So 6 planets that are in retrograde include Mercury, the planet of communication, messaging, also salesmanship; Jupiter, the planet of good luck, abundance, and opportunity; Saturn, the planet that rules responsibility, constriction, and overcoming obstacles; Uranus, the future-focused planet of unpredictability, eccentricity, and visionary thinking; Neptune, the planet that rules fantasy, dreams, illusion, and escapism; and Pluto, the planet that rules death, destruction, power, and regeneration. So all of this stuff is happening right now. So I think people get a little intimidated. But basically, instead of assuming that it's all negative, it's a time to realize that you might be feeling like you're taking 1 step forward and 3 steps back. So it's not so much that you suck or that you're not being productive enough. It's more of, if you are not going to naturally do what Virgo wants to do, which is to slow down and reevaluate, the planets will force you to.
So yeah, we're definitely in a interesting cosmic time.
Yeah, and it's like it's a natural cycle, you know. I don't know about you personally, but I have been feeling like maybe people are a little bit more on edge. I noticed a bunch of car accidents in the past 48 hours, just people going into car accidents, communication issues, people flipping up each other off more often than not. With Mercury retrograde, communication is stalled. Sometimes your tech craps out on you. I just noticed that at least where I've been living, the energy has been rather hostile. So again, not that Mars is necessarily doing anything right now, but again, instead of being frustrated with the cosmic force slowdown, actually this could be a time of rest and reflection and rejuvenation. So with that, sometimes the retrograde can kind of project this haze of confusion, but the slowdown actually forces us to reevaluate what's best for our long-term growth and our plans. So, because it's all occurring right now during Virgo season, it does allow us to get honest with how things are going, how your business has been operating this year, and what you need to do to optimize your personal and business efficacy for the remainder of this calendar year and beyond. So, the overall vibe and maybe intention that you can say for yourself could be I identify where I can organize my life and clear the mental cobwebs with practical thinking, as Virgo is all about practicality.
Interesting. So, also, if it doesn't feel like it's something that's resonating with you, because maybe you're like, I'm not having communication issues, or I'm not having tech issues, or I'm not seeing these external forces at play, this could just be a good reminder to slow down and take some time for yourself rather than necessarily looking for what's going to happen to me next is a perspective I want to throw out here because I think sometimes the weariness that I have to find myself is not also expecting myself to feel a certain way just because the astros are a certain pattern. Um, you have free will. So take with that what you will, but essentially just a reminder that if you're not necessarily like associating that, oh, right now we're in Mercury retrograde, so I have to be more in a hostile energy, or I have to be in something's gonna go wrong about. Just allow for whatever's to unfold, because again, each sign is going to be affected a bit differently. It is going to be affected in their own way. So, not necessarily letting that story of the overarching theme be what you're just solely manifesting. Because, again, I think sometimes to piggyback off that train thought, uh, sometimes we end up just expecting the worst. And that's what we end up manifesting. It's not so much the Astros, it's just because of the associations we give to it.
Right. And so I think this Mercury retrograde period as well is really probably going to affect Gemini and Virgo risings the most. Right. So usually the rising sign indicates your chart rulership. Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury. So I personally think Gemini risings might be affected a little bit more on the shadow aspects of like confusion, not being as sharp. Like Gemini is associated with Hermes, right? The messenger of the gods. So maybe Hermes needs to chill because usually he's flitting around everywhere. Whereas the Virgo rising in Virgo season could really be thriving. So again, ride whatever train you're on. If it's either positive or negative, just go with it. So with that, we can get into the sun, moon, and rising horoscopes for each sign. So I can share what I am channeling, and Anita, if there's anything you want to add, feel free to chime in.
Perfect.
All right. So starting with Aries, Sun, Moon, and Risings. This is an opportunity for reevaluation to shake up your daily routines and rituals. So which ones have gotten stale, that are no longer activating your highest expression? Which fun rituals can you incorporate in your morning and evening routines as we phase into autumn? And this doesn't have to be like make a huge overhaul. So how can you chip away and discern which daily activities will optimize your highest functioning while doing the least amount of work?
I'm also getting a wave of adding for you ladies in particular, maybe looking at it since we are changing seasons, how I could start living more cyclically. How can I start to slow down while the winter and the autumn fall? For those on the East Coast that actually experienced real weather, um, how can I start to slow down as these changes are being shifted?
Right. So, with that, I think a lot of people need to chill. as soon as August happens and kids go back to school, people are like, okay, summer's over. Actually, it's not. It doesn't end until September 21st. So again, how can you prepare yourself for the oncoming autumn season? So there's something to consider. Just because school is back in session does not mean summer is over. So how can you kind of eke out as well the last bits of summer so you can be prepared for appreciation for the fall? Okay. Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Risings. There's going to be a cleansing refresh in your relationship with your inner child. So fall can be a heavy time, as I was saying earlier, associated with the dying trees and back to school blues, even if you're a grown adult. So how can you prioritize time for your full self-expression? Where can you make time to just have fun and be creative, no matter what your adult obligations are? All right.
Also,
So
what is a
mhm.
way you can actually reconnect with your inner self, inner child, so to speak? Maybe start incorporating something fun for you just out of the sheer having it be fun, not being another thing to add to your to-do list. So maybe if you don't watch movies all that often, you go check out a movie you want to see. Or on the flip end, maybe you want to go see a concert that's in town of a band you really like. What are these fun ways of incorporating a little more joy into your day-to-day life so you don't feel like you're stuck in a constant routine?
Right. So, um, if we're starting your business, you don't want to just be trading one job for another in which you're slaving away. So how can you maybe prioritize play as a value in your business as well? Something to consider. All right. Moving on to Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Risings. So there's going to be a robust cleanse rushing through your home, your sanctuary, maybe your relationship to your family. So maybe you find that you're a little bit at odds with your biological family, always searching for the closeness and emotional intimacy that you wish you experienced more as a kid. So maybe you're going through feelings of emotional lack right now. So how can you cultivate the sense of closeness, security, and coziness for yourself now, regardless of how you feel with your family?
I'm gonna add one thing to this one, and it's how can you cultivate a sense of safety as well? Because to me personally, security and
Mhm.
safety can be somewhat different. Security can also be more in the realms of like, am I financially taken care of? Are my needs being met? But how can I cultivate safety? That can be literally cultivating safety within your own body, cultivating safety in your own home. How can I maybe feel like I'm actually cozier at home? Maybe buying a new blanket that you're going to love to snuggle up with. Taking this from a perspective of how can I actually start to feel safe and cultivate that energy of a safe family environment in my house now?
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Moving on to Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Risings. So typically, Cancer is rather introverted, but right now, this new moon in Virgo is activating this area of life um, that is all about broadcasting. So this is the time to really spread your message. It's the time to broadcast your natural energy as much as possible by using your voice. So make the time to come up with a promotional plan. Determine what kind of speaking engagements light you up. They can include podcast interviews, in-person speaking, online summits, and then go for it. So if you're not feeling the call to use your voice right now, in the off chance, this is also an excellent time to rebrand visually, either your social media platforms, your website, or maybe tweaking your messaging. Whatever you can do to communicate your truest soul essence and get it out to the masses. Let people know who you are and make your offers visible.
Also, maybe it's time to reevaluate in what ways were you stopping yourself from being seen. So, actually looking at your messaging. Are you being clear? Are you actually intact with your own message? And looking at it from the perspective of where may I have been my own block?
Right, right. Again, the vibe here is clearing the cobwebs. So, what cobwebs do you need to clear when it comes to promoting your message? Getting really clear on what it is. All right, moving on to Sun, Moon, and Rising. Sun, Leo, Sun, Moon, and oh my goodness, Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. See, I am a Mercury dominant person and I am losing my ability to communicate. Apologies. So, this is going to be a rush of fresh energy washing through your finances and your house of cash money. So, maybe you're due for a cash flow windfall, you know? So, what cobwebs do you need to get clear from your bank accounts? When was the last time you actually spent time tending to them? How can you make your relationship with money a pleasurable game? And how can you transform it into a spiritual practice versus just kind of ignoring it, hoping it would go away?
I'm getting the strong urge to go ahead and call this sign out in particular and just say, how can you start really evaluating your finances and like getting serious about it and not coming from a place of guilt or shame, but just looking at your financial health and really looking at it from a perspective of where am I? Where would I like to be? And then if it's different and there's a gap, bridging the gap with what actions, maybe that are small, can I start to take that feel feasible, that feel enjoyable to
Mm,
start actually getting to that place. Because to Melanie's point, you're not going to get where you want financially if you just sit here and ignore your finances and hope that they don't bother you.
right. So you gotta clear out those cobwebs. How can you view money as like a relationship, a romantic one? You wouldn't like it if your boyfriend or girlfriend just hit you up whenever they wanted to. How can you cultivate that in your everyday life?
And then also, final tip, if you can just start to feel actual gratitude while you're potentially paying for bills or when you receive money,
Mm,
that will make it flow in and out much easier than it is when you're just kind of taking it for granted. So going back to Melanie's analogy of a relationship, if you're taking someone for granted, there's a good chance that after a while they're not going to want to stay with you.
mm-hmm. Right. All right. Moving on to Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Risings. So this is the new moon glow up energy for you. New moon, new you. So this Virgo season is asking you which identities you feel called to embody. How does this new you operate? What does she think? How does she act? What daily and long term choices does she make to set herself up for success? And actually, this is the time to ask yourself, what is your version of success? What does it look like? So, this is the time to step into the highest version of yourself on your highest timeline. So, how can you make room for that right now?
Yeah. So key theme, embodiment. And actually, I'm going to counter this with not only what is she thinking, but what is she letting go of? What is she letting go of? Think about it for a second. We all know that the next version of ourselves has something that we currently are doing, a habit we may have, a thought pattern that we might have that needs to be let go of. So taking a moment to see where can you go ahead and release what's no longer serving so you can add to that embodied energy.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. So, moving on, we have Libra, Sun, Moon, and Risings. So, this is a tender time of deep reflection of your deepest wounds and your deep seated subconscious patterns that are unconscious at this point. So, what habits, thoughts, and beliefs are no longer serving you? How can you release them to make the way for your upcoming birthday season? So, how can you practically embody your highest timeline now?
Amazing.
All
And
right.
also, I want to take a moment to just say it's not necessarily about looking at your deepest wounds from a harsh perspective. I would actually ask you to go ahead and see what's not serving you in the sense of also how what's coming up for me to rewire and what's coming up for me to release from my energy and really taking that from a point of whether it's a relationship, whether it's a thought pattern, whether it's a um friendship or just anything that's no longer serving you in your highest timeline, what can you kind of not necessarily wash away, but the idea is how can you start cultivating the energy of actually stepping into that highest timeline based off of what feels authentic.
Right. All right, moving on. We have Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Risings. So you're going to be experiencing a cleansing tidal wave through your friend groups and communities. So it's a time to evaluate who's actually helping you reach your goals and who might be holding you back. It's not so much that you're placing the blame on someone else, but are there friends in your life that are not necessarily there to help you get to the next level? Or are they always like complaining, right? So are you building yourself the best support system possible? Or is the one that you currently have kind of tearing you down? So how can you make room for the most advantageous, genuine connections right now?
With that, I'm going to also pose the question, who do you find yourself that gossips around you? Or who do you find yourself gossiping to? And because it may be time to relook at those friendships. And again, I'm not saying this from a place of shame, but if you're on this optimal timeline of you're wanting to build a business, you're wanting to cultivate hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, maybe look at the habits you're having with these friends. Are they the ones that you call up to go get drunk? Because that might be a conflicting habit of what you're trying to achieve. So really evaluating it from what is the confliction, and not necessarily going back to Melanie's point, you're not putting blame, but it's about who you're being in these friendships as well. So you take ownership because it takes two to tango.
Right. Virgo is all about optimization and efficiency and making sure that you're living up to your highest self. Now, a shadow aspect to Virgo is perfectionism and like giving yourself these unrealistic expectations. But for this particular new moon in Virgo, it's activating this area of life regarding your friend groups. So, you know, you are, as I say, the average of the 5 people you associate with the most. So, again, something to keep in mind as you reevaluate. Okay, so Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Risings. There is a refresh around your life's work right now happening. So Virgo season is all about work and regaining efficiency in organizations, while Sagittarius is generally all about deep study, right? So how can you actually take this time to apply what you have learned and weave it into your life's work, your dharma, your soul mission? So how can you transition to your dream career if you're not already there? What gift of yours that lights you up every day is possible to package into an offer that also serves others? Something to consider.
I'm going to also pose, what experiences do you have that you've already navigated and you can guide along the way of basically showing others how to get through a specific situation? Have you gone through a divorce with ease? And now you and your partner, despite having kids, are at least amicable? Or have you, there's a very famous kind of example that Tony Robbins will give of, have you maybe healed your eczema and now you know how to do it naturally so you can show others how to do it? Because when you've already had the walk, it's much easier to guide versus trying to be a teacher of something that you still have not embodied.
Mastery is a big thing with Sagittarius, generally embodiment. But this is also, you're here to like lead people through cosmic journeys as well. So you can learn and read all that esoteric knowledge, but if you're not sharing it with people, you're not really doing the full dharmic expression. So how can you start doing that today? All right, Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Risings. This is a time of great clarity regarding your personal ideals, your guiding principles, your life philosophy, and the values that support your personal manifesto. So hustling, grinding, and forcing your way through life can only get you so far. That is a thing for some people, and they can build a great business that way. But if you're out here listening or watching this podcast, you understand that you can't keep going on that way. So you are all about the long-term vision, which is integral to getting things done. So how can you deepen your spirituality to further support your life's work and the legacy you're going to leave behind? Is there a specific topic that you've been meaning to master that you can now probably make some time for that will enhance your long-term vision and actually accomplishing it? And if so, how can you start doing that today?
I'm also going to oppose the implementation of just playing and learning what you might like, because a lot of times when people hear deep in their spirituality, they're going to go to the mind of the meditation or some form of breathwork practice. And as much as those tools are great, and I love them, I'm sure Melanie also uses them in her day-to-day life. There are other ways. You can do yoga, you can go on a walk, you can journal, but this is not the roadmap that's set. So essentially, I'm going to give you a little bit of a kick of just try something, see if it feels good to you, and what is actually something that is actually attainable. Don't be following things just because it's a trend. Don't be following things just because you think you should. What actually feels good to you? Because at the end of the day, the easiest way of connecting to source comes differently to each person based on their own individual map. So the whole thing about this is just really taking the time for that connection, whatever that method may be for you.
Right. All right. We're closing in here with Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Risings. So this is the time of great rebirth, this particular new moon. So you're not really one for human vulnerability, usually, Aquarius. But for this new moon, it's time to clear the cobwebs around your hidden fear of the liminal space. So how can you lean into the gap until you reach the game? Just like that book that was written by that guy who also wrote 2x, was it 10x from 2x or 2x to 10x? Basically, a lot of people will, especially the people that are like building legacies here, like building really big businesses, they are always putting themselves with these like unrealistic expectations. They're trying to get to the next milestone, and they don't really think they have time to reflect on what they've already accomplished. So, if you're constantly going from milestone to milestone, you're not reevaluating, you're not reflecting on it, you're just moving on to the next thing, you're kind of missing the whole point of the journey. So, how can you kind of lean into the fact that you haven't really reached the next milestone while also kind of looking back briefly, checking out the scene, giving yourself a pat on the back where it's needed, reevaluating what's most impactful, but then also enjoying that in between liminal space versus just going through a checklist. Like you can't really list your way through life. So how can you incorporate um comfortability with the unknown?
Melanie, you're just out here calling me out. So, yeah, I think it's honestly an interesting little pattern because I found myself in a coaching call today being extremely vulnerable. So, we're right on par. And I'm not going to lie. Literally, vulnerability does not come easy to me whatsoever. I can be a safe space for someone else, but for me to actually get vulnerable and real and raw, sometimes it takes a little bit of an extra nudge or more of a specific intention, so to speak. So I think if you're in my same boat, the biggest thing I'm going to also add to this is how can you give yourself grace? Because so much of the time we don't think that we are on our next pillar when reality is you're about a 2 millimeter step away from actually hitting that next thing. But a lot of times we do get in our own head and we do block ourselves. So how can you be more observant and really think about where have I been? Where do I want to go? But also, what am I grateful for in this present moment?
Mm-hmm. Right. I think a lot of people kind of just like jump from thing to thing. But if there's no enjoyment with the uncomfortable portion of the process, why else are we here, you know? All right. And finally, we are concluding with Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Risings. So there's going to be a really cleansing refresh around your view of relationships, especially people pleasing, also a review of partnerships and your one-to-one client experiences and containers. So is there anything that needs to be updated in working with the one-on-one? Are there new boundaries that you need to be placing? What about your pricing? Does that need to be reevaluated? What about your business partnerships? Are you meant to either end a partnership or enhance one currently? What are you trying to accomplish when it comes to your relationships outside of business? Are you having codependent or people pleasing patterns pop up? So again, as you finish out quarter 3 and you get ready for quarter 4, what do you need to clear so that you can call in aligned partnerships, you can call in aligned soul contracted clients, and how can you have those boundaries in place to finish out the year strong?
I'm also going to go ahead and say, how can you put yourself first on your own list?
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, unless Melanie has anything else to add, I think we have our new moon reading in Virgo. Yay. And on my end, I'm completely done in terms of transmissions of thoughts, but I do want to go ahead and just thank Melanie for her time.
Mm-hmm.
And Melanie, if you have any offers or how can people connect with you, please go ahead and let us know.
Yeah. So anybody wants to work with me, I do have a few offers. So they include my signature divine assignment and legacy building reading. This is for the established small business owner to medium enterprise CEO that is interested in understanding why are they here? What is the legacy that they were born to leave behind? How can we actively build that together? I also have an aligned abundance reading for fellow visionaries, healers, and people that are not necessarily at the thriving CEO level yet. So the Divine Assignment and Legacy Building reading is 90 minutes with lifetime access to the recording at $450. The Aligned Abundance reading is kind of about establishing wealth, building out some sort of abundance plan, if you will, figuring out the areas of life where you're meant to obtain money with ease, maybe discern the areas of life where it's meant to be more challenging. That is also 90 minutes with lifetime access to the recording at $350. I also have a PR strategy for busy CEOs, which is astrology informed, a 90-day container that's working with me one-on-one. This is for the CEO that is established in their zone of genius and they are trying to just improve their messaging as they step into being the face of their company. So that 90-day container is $2,500 and you can apply to work with me at the link. Everything will be below in the description box and you can book a reading there or apply to work with me one-on-one.
Amazing. And if you guys are wanting to connect with me, I am actually going to be unveiling. So this is the first of the interweb that's actually going to be finding out about this, but I am going to be unveiling the Find Your Set. Ooh, talk about Mercury in retrograde, huh? But I am going to be unveiling the Find Your Voice coaching session. So this is going to be a container. We are going to dive in with first but foremost a little bit of breath work and then diving deep into a custom one-on-one situation of mentorship, guidance, might be a little bit of intuitive knowledge coming through. And the second session is the Find Your Purpose session. So if you are actually currently kind of not sure what you're here for or not sure how your experiences resonate with what you're supposed to be doing, that's going to be its own container. I also still do my one-on-one sessions for breathwork. Those are 111 and you can book with me below in the Calendly link. I am still currently revamping my website, so it's going to be a minute before that's back up. But if you're interested, feel free to message me. And I'm also taking on some more one-on-ones privately. So we are going to have 3-month and 6-month options. It is a committed container. And you will be getting a combination of the breath work and the coaching. And so if you're interested in actually just setting up a discovery call or diving in, you can reach me at my Instagram down below, or you can go ahead and shoot me an email. I will make sure to have the information in the description box. And we are just so grateful to be able to serve you. And it's been an amazing call. And again, Melanie, thank you again so much for your time. And we will be back in 2 weeks with a full moon reading.
Thank you.